It's the Underpowered Hour. On this week's show, we're live from Destination Defender in Malibu, California, talking to the Biltmore Land Rover Experience team and Los Angeles County Sheriff's Department Search and Rescue, all about their mission during this year's hurricane. And now, here's the show. Welcome to the Underpowered Hour. I'm Steve Beres, mild-mannered television executive by day and Land Rover collector by night. You can find out more about our cars and what we're working on at theberescollection.com or follow us on Instagram at theberescollection. I'm joined, as always, by my good friend, Goss.
Thank you to everyone joining us today. I own and operate Pangolin 4x4 in Springfield, Oregon, where we live and breathe Land Rovers. Check us out online on Facebook, Instagram at Pangolin 4x4. Let's get started.
All right, dear listener. Well, we have a super fantastic panel that we recorded at Destination Defender in beautiful, sunshiny Malibu, California. Of course, it rained through the entire Destination Defender. It's like it's a rain-making program. It's like it was cursed by some kind of gypsy or something, maybe the Destination Defender. We're not entirely sure. But at any rate, we had an opportunity to sit down with some folks from Los Angeles County Sheriff's Department Search and Rescue, as well as our friends from the Land Rover Experience at Biltmore, to talk about some really cool search and rescue that they were able to do during the absolutely terrible hurricane that hit North Carolina during the time that Trek was supposed to be going on down there. So, of course, Trek wasn't able to happen, but Land Rover pivoted the Experience team and were able to pair up with Los Angeles County Search and Rescue and go out and do some good. So, without further ado, let's swing over to our good friend Jeffrey Ahuden as he introduces the panel and get right into it. It was a lot of fun. And this is just one of a few panels that we were able to do there at Destination Defender. So look forward to more of that in the future. And without further delay, here's the panel.
Our Trek event this year was at our LRE, our Land Rover Experience Center at the Biltmore in Asheville, North Carolina. And as many of you know, the Asheville was devastated by Hurricane Helene, and there were a lot of people in need. And so as a company, we got together and talked about how we could help out. And the first thing that came to mind was that we have good people who are experienced with our vehicles, and we have vehicles down there. And so we quickly were able to mobilize and help out with the recovery efforts. And there's some incredible stories, and we've never been able to get everyone who's been involved, or most of the folks who were involved, directly and from the inside here to tell that story. And so it's a real genuine pleasure as somebody who works for the company and who feels important about the stories we tell and what our DNA is in terms of service. It's really an important moment for us to be here. So we have brought in our friends, Steve Beres and Goss from the Underpowered Hour. Is it your first or your second most favorite?
Oh, it's third or fourth
popular favorite Land Rover podcast. And they're expert interviewers, and we wanted them to sort of foster this story. So without further ado, I'd like to introduce Ike and Steve and let them take it on the road.
Well, thank you very much, Jeffrey. We appreciate it, and thank you for putting this together, and for JLR and Land Rover for having us out here at this beautiful estate. This place is incredible. It's like an Ewok village full of Land Rovers. And yeah, it's great. There's all kinds of stuff, but absolutely no water. So if you need to get water, we have the only water in bottles here. So if you haven't brought your own, then you're done for. But there's plenty of alcohol, so no worries there. And if you haven't gotten any yet, I suggest doing that now, because our podcast is much easier to tolerate with a significant amount of alcohol. So yeah, Ike, Goss, and myself every week sit down and talk about everything interesting in new and vintage Land Rovers around the world and around our country. And we've had the pleasure of going down and spending time at all of these different Land Rover facilities, at the Land Rover experiences. We've been to Trek down in Texas and those sort of things. And we can tell you that Land Rover puts on an absolutely amazing event and does some incredible things. But like Jeffrey alluded to in his little intro there, this year things obviously were quite different. Mother Nature decided that the Trek event, as planned, was not going to proceed. But in true Land Rover spirit, and I think that it really does speak to the ethos of what it is to own a Land Rover, to be in the Land Rover community, and really what Land Rover's mission has sort of been since its inception in 1948 is to be a vehicle of service, over everything. Now, it's a very comfortable vehicle of service these days, maybe a little more so than the 1951 Series 1 Land Rover sitting out front, but it has always been a really important part of Land Rover's mission to be there to serve the community, to be that vehicle for those folks in need. And so we thought, what better way to sort of talk about that than to have this fine group of people join us and talk a little bit about what was a pretty unique way to use their Land Rovers and their incredibly special skills to sort of come together and come from here in California and go down and help some people out when they were in what was a pretty bad way. So
I'm excited to hear this story, and I'm going to let each of you guys introduce yourselves because I'll screw that up for sure. But I believe we have Matt and Charlie and Mike and Marcos. And why don't you all just tell us about yourselves and your role in this adventure? Yeah, let's start on this side.
Yeah, sure. So my name's Matt Albritton. I'm the lead instructor and location manager at the Biltmore Land Rover Experience Center. Been there since 2015. Started as a level 1 instructor and worked my way up to the lead position. And I was part of, with Jeff, trying to get a way for us to help folks out after the hurricane. We had a really experienced team of off-road drivers and vehicles, and we wanted to put them to use. So Jeff helped us coordinate that and get out there and help the folks in North Carolina that were really, really needing our help. So yeah. Pass it off to Charlie.
All right, I'm Charlie Sheeran. I'm the general manager of the Land Rover dealership in Asheville, Land Rover Asheville. So I had been working with Matt, me and my team, 3 teammates that were training for Trek, that we were going to participate in it when the storm hit. Did not pair up with these guys after the storm, but have my own several adventures and my own Defender running support in the community as well.
Very cool.
Mike Liam, a 30-year search and rescue team member from Los Angeles County Sheriff's Department. And over the last couple of years, we've expanded our reach. Last year, I led a team to Turkey after the earthquake they had there, and we did a lot of rescue work there. Marcos went with me. And then when the hurricane hit, a friend of mine in South Carolina called me and said, "You guys need to be here." I said, "Great. We need to get there." And he sponsored us to go there. And we hit the ground not having any idea what our logistical plan was. And we were met by a fleet of Land Rovers. So pretty awesome.
Hello, Marcos Rubio, a 33-year retiree Los Angeles police officer in special weapons and tactics. I have medical skills as a tactical medic, and I use them as a search and rescue volunteer for the Sheriff's Department, which is what I'm doing now. I was fortunate enough to be selected to go to Turkey as well as to go to North Carolina. Now that I have the opportunity, we were able to seize that moment and use our skills to do whatever we could do to help with what was needed in North Carolina. So it was very rewarding.
Well, Mike, Marcos, thank you very much for your service. Really do appreciate it for everything you do here in Los Angeles for us, and to go out and
and do that across the world and across the country. It's absolutely fantastic. And without folks like you, I don't know, the world would be a lot worse off. So thank you for putting yourselves in danger to help people out when they're in a real bad way. So let's talk about it a little bit. You said, first of all, what is it that puts you guys into sort of action when it comes to there's a disaster, it's a hurricane, it's in North Carolina, you need to get down there. How is it is it a FEMA thing? Is it what kind of call goes out to you to say, hey, boys, it's time to jump on an airplane and come down here and give us a hand? How does that work? How does that coordinate across the country?
Let me say, I have a key man here, Mike Liam, and he has his feelers out there. And I think maybe he's doing something on the internet and he's looking for disasters. He's going, we can maybe go
he's
here.
He's in a Reddit group for disasters. Eh?
There it is.
That's what it is.
And the next thing you know, he's going, okay, these are the people I know. Marcos, are you available? Cindy, are you available? Chris, are you available? And he's making these notifications. The next thing you know, we're raising our hands. He's able to make some magic work. And he says, all right, if you got nothing planned, pack your bags. We're going to be moving.
He's the Hannibal of the A-team, if you will, the rescue community.
I'd like to say so.
That's right.
Yeah. And so tell us a little bit more about that. So you guys know there's a disaster. You know you got to do something. And you guys have the resources on the ground. How are you guys connected together?
So it all depends on a couple of things, obviously. There's got to be a plan, a logistical plan. There's got to be funding, because our sheriff's department can't spend taxpayer dollars to send people outside of the state.
Different taxpayers aren't covered.
What's that?
Different taxpayers.
Different taxpayers, yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So I have to arrange funding, which I've been able to do each time. Like I said, a friend of mine in South Carolina called me and said, hey, you guys need to be here. And I said, great. He's like, well, you get a small team, I'll pay for you to get here. Boom. So funding's handled. The other part was the logistics. We can't just show up and say, we're here. So I was put in contact with Buncombe County Rescue Group.
Okay.
Out of Asheville, because one of our former team members is on the board of directors for that group.
I see.
And so made that connection and said, hey, I've got a team, small team that can come out and help. Number one, if you want to help. Number two, if you can give us like some cement to sleep on or something. And she said, absolutely. So now we had some support there. And so when we landed, we had really no plan about like, how are we going to get around? And so having your drivers with your vehicles with us the entire time we were there was 100% game changer. First day, we were given a list of 13 people that were unaccounted for and missing. And strictly based on your vehicles and your driver's local knowledge, we were able to access all these places, and we accounted for 12 of 13 missing people. The 13th most likely was one of many that got washed away because his address wasn't even there anymore.
Wow. That's a sobering reminder of how serious this is. Now you volunteered, right? You said, hey, we've got these resources in place. So did you reach out to the Buncombe County Search and Rescue? How did that work?
Yes, that's a great question. So this all kind of started with the Trek event, because we had originally said, well, can we use Trek to help? And that ended up not being a viable option for us. But what ended up happening, since we're a JLR-owned operation and our vehicles and employees are paid by JLR, we could do that. So I'm going to put a plug in for Defender Service Awards as well, because Defender Service Awards actually had the connection. So Linville Central Search and Rescue, which is just northeast of Asheville up near Grandfather Mountain, they had applied to be a Defender Service Awards winner this year. So we started looking through our contacts, sorry about that, and saw that they were local. And we said, well, let's reach out to them. So JLR Corporate through Jeff and his team helped us reach out to Linville Central. And they said, well, if you could give us a car, that would be great. So we provided them a Defender 110. And in the process, the leader of that team said, well, if you guys are interested in helping Buncombe County Rescue Squad, which is sort of a sister organization, then I could put you in touch with them. So I did. So when I reached out to a guy named Jeff, who's team lead at Buncombe County, he said, yeah, we could totally use some drivers and some vehicles because our F-250 just went down. The engine blew on it after
That happens.
lots of, of course. We'll leave it there with that, right? The Blue Oval, we'll leave them alone. So he said, yeah, I've got some guys from LA County flying in and I don't have any vehicles or drivers to take them around. I said, well, perfect. Well, let's sign us up. I'll bring 4 cars and I'll take some instructors and we'll help in whatever way we can. So
Right on.
Yeah.
So you guys meet each other, and then what happens? What sort of obstacles do you encounter? What do you see? I mean, we see stuff on the news, and I don't think anybody knows what happens, especially with this particular disaster. There was a lot of politicizing of what's going on, right?
Absolutely. Yeah.
And that I think was the interesting story about this particular disaster. People were like, oh, there's nobody helping. And then the other people were saying everybody's helping. And it's hard to know when you're across the country what's really going on. So what did you guys encounter, both in terms of like physical obstacles, trees or washed away roads or whatever? And then, what did you see happening?
Sure. So the physical obstacles, the interesting thing about this hurricane is that typically with hurricanes, you either get a lot of wind or a lot of rain. You typically don't have both. And this one had both. We also almost never get tornadoes in the mountains of North Carolina. And there were hundreds of tornadoes that hit. They almost don't realize, we don't know how many tornadoes there were because of the way the storm formed. So there were so many down trees, and the amount of water that came through in the flood surpassed the 1916 flood, which was the last greatest flood in the area by, I think, 3 or 4 feet at the highest level. So you got to think in some of these, in the French Broad River, the Swananoa River, which were the two, converge at the front gates of Biltmore Estate. Typically, you walk through those, and they might come up to your knees. When we had in some of those areas 60, 70 feet of water. So the amount of destruction from the flooding is just hard to fathom, really.
So that's like inundating people's properties, washing away bridges, like pretty serious infrastructure problems.
Serious infrastructure. So I'll put it into context. So the archway at the Biltmore Estate, when you go through the lodge gate, it's probably 25 feet up to the top of the arch. It's again off of the Swananoa River. It's up 15 feet from that. And it was at the top of the arch or slightly above that where the water was. A couple other Biltmore buildings that I can speak to, they had put sandbags up to cover the first floor, and they had mud in the gutters of the second floor. So, I mean, the amount of, you almost just can't prepare for this level of destruction.
Yeah. Like a lot of people, was there evacuation notices? People were supposed to be evacuated, right? Or what happened there?
From what I know, there was there was 2 systems. So there was a low pressure system that stalled out and dumped a lot of rain starting Tuesday night before the storm hit on Thursday.
Okay.
That added a lot of additional water before the hurricane even got there. So there wasn't flooding expected, but not to the level that it actually flooded. So I think there was it's hard to say. I want to say that most areas received a shelter in place order. And that, again, it was sort of one of those freak storms where I don't even think that we could have predicted what was going to happen.
Sure.
And some of the areas where there were buildings that had never flooded before were flooding. So it was totally unprecedented disaster.
So this was my 3rd hurricane, because I also responded to Hurricane Ian in Florida and Hurricane Harvey in Texas with Team Rubicon. I'm also a member of Team Rubicon. And those 2 hurricanes, Ian and Harvey, were on flat ground. So it was just a matter of a bunch of water. The difference here in Asheville was the mountainous area and the debris flows that took out entire valleys.
Wow.
Yeah.
So that's really what killed a lot of people.
Mudslides,
yes,
like rocks,
the entire mountainside just let loose, and anything for the next 3 miles that was in its way was gone.
Yeah.
Everything from homes to motorhomes, vehicles, just washed down what was a little creek turned into a giant river.
Right.
It was a biblical proportion as far as water was concerned, raised up over bridges, areas where main boulevards were just filled with water. And we were seeing the remains of that, or the seating section of that. So we didn't have to go through that area, but you could see the remnants of it. And there were casualties. And sadly, a lot of people may not be found because of that, because they were washed away.
Yeah. Wow. I mean, it's just the level of destruction of something like that. It really is pretty. It's almost hard to imagine. That you think that now. At the end of the day, when you folks hit the ground, what's the mission, if you will, right? What's your purpose when you hit the ground? You're at the airport. You get into the Defenders. You probably turn on the heated seats. They're very nice. Maybe engage massage. I don't know. But after that, you've dialed up, the whatever on the Pivy entertainment system. You've got your tracks playing, a little Dwight Yoakam or something maybe. What's the mission? Where do you get you're looking for people, I assume, or what's that?
With Buncombe County Rescue Squad, the very first day we were there, we arrived at 6 a.m. We're picked up by your amazing vehicles and instructors. And literally, we started to work right away. And Buncombe County Rescue Squad already had a list of people that were missing and unaccounted for. Mm-hmm. And they had some approximate locations where these people might be. And so we set out on that day looking for these 13 people. And based on the availability of access from the vehicles, and almost as importantly, the local knowledge of your instructors, we were able to access all these areas, and we accounted for 12 of the 13.
Wow.
Which was fantastic.
Yeah.
And I can't stress enough how important the local knowledge of your instructors was.
Right.
We walked into the command post on day 2 and checked in with FEMA and checked in with New York City Fire Department. That was the incident management team running the entire operation.
Oh, yeah.
And of course, they had no local knowledge.
Right.
But looking at a map, your instructors were able to tell the incident management team, oh, that bridge is out, but you can get around it by going up around here and going up this draw and going down through Billy Bob's backyard.
Yes.
So
turn left at the Big Oak.
Go past the church. There is no way to put a value on that.
Right, exactly.
We definitely had more of an edge.
Yeah.
We had more of an edge with the drivers there, the vehicles, of course, because they were inaccessible areas.
Yeah.
More importantly, because of the drivers, they were able to get us to these locations at a faster pace because of this known terrain that they know.
Right. And that's obviously a huge difference, because it's, these people are potentially in a pretty bad situation, and the faster you get to them, the more likely they're going to be, be able to survive when you get to them. And so it's almost like detective work. Then it sounds like you've got to you guys have a method, it sounds like, Marcus, then to sort of figure out, okay, we know these people were last in this area. So what's the method then? You get there, and do you have a method that you go through to try to locate these people?
Well, we were able to interview either family members or neighbors. And what we found out is there is generational, living in a lot of those areas.
Yeah.
I mean, you've got grandpa, grandma, you've got aunts, uncles, cousins, all living on the same street. And that street's probably named after them.
Right.
And I'm not kidding.
Yeah, right.
It was like, oh, nice to meet you, Mr. Stott. Wait a minute. Stott Road.
Stott Road. Oh,
okay, I got it now.
Okay, got it. Yeah. Okay. All right. Wow.
Well, I want to add something to that. So when we got there, the traditional emergency vehicles, ambulances, the Ford Explorers that were typically the vehicles were F-250s, could only go in certain areas.
Sure.
And
so
also break down.
Yes. They in the case of Buncombe County Rescue Squad's vehicle, they did.
Fix or repair daily, Ford, F-O-R-D.
Yeah, that's right.
Fix or repair daily.
That's right.
So there was a list. There was a lot of volunteers that had gone out and were walking door to door, but there was areas that couldn't have been accessed otherwise.
Right.
So when these guys arrived in Asheville, we picked up a lot of the remaining people on that list that couldn't be gotten to.
Right.
So So that was a big piece of it. We were able to drive further in without having to walk and land nav our way overland on foot to get to those areas. We were able to drive further, which means we could go to more stops.
Right.
Right.
More
So
efficient.
let's talk about that a little bit. So what kind of driving, what sort of stuff are you engaging to do that? Like how serious was the all-terrain driving that you were having to do?
It was from a driving standpoint, off-road standpoint, it was quite interesting terrain because you have roads that are completely washed out, bridges washed out, or roads that are falling in to the riverbed, right? So you've got one or two, maybe a lane or half a lane, and then the ditch off to the side. So to get around where to make sure you weren't going to fall into the river, you'd have to go into the ditch, which required off-road height.
Right.
But then you had a down power line right after that, which means you go to access height.
Right.
To go under the power line. So
Right.
even the traditional 4x4s that are lifted would run into the issue of the overhead clearance if they had the undercarriage clearance. So
Right.
this is where the Defender really shined because we were just easily able to shift back and forth to add additional ground clearance where we needed it and lower the overhead clearance where we needed to go under limbs or power lines.
Yeah, that's not something I would have considered. I would have thought most of the obstacles were down on the ground,
Yeah, that's
or
a good
maybe
point,
trees
yeah.
you had to
Yeah.
cut up and pull away or something like that.
We did take some chainsaws with us, but we didn't do a whole lot of chainsawing,
Yeah.
which was nice. We
Yeah.
were prepared to do that. Most of the trees at that point had either been moved by the locals or by the emergency services,
Sure.
but the roads were in such a bad shape. I mean,
Yeah.
there were sections of railroad where the railroad bed had washed out and it looked like a roller coaster.
Oh.
Right. So
wow.
it was
Huh.
pretty gnarly.
That's why, like the
Areas, yeah.
whole road bed had shifted.
Yeah, and there were sections of the railroad where the steel beams had actually just disappeared. Like you would think they would have sank to the bottom of the river.
Yeah.
They were just gone, had washed down the river.
Jeez.
So, we had to
Wow.
get out and do a lot of on-foot assessments prior to driving over some of the terrain just to check it, which is what we typically do when we're
Yeah.
teaching off-roading is like walk it on foot first before, when in doubt, get out
Right.
and scout it, right?
Yeah.
So we would get out, scout it, check it, and make sure we could put a vehicle on it first. And then once it was safe, we could drive it, was okay to go. So, the two teams of us working together was quite effective.
That probably complicates it when you go to an area you think you're familiar with and everything's washed away or different. And, you're just like, wait a minute, that tree that I normally use or that intersection or road or whatever that I use as a mental note, it's gone.
Yes.
So
Yeah.
it used to be Bob's backyard, but it's gone.
It's
Well,
gone.
and your landmarks are also all changed
Yeah.
too.
Right.
So like when you're
Yeah.
driving in an area, you're like, wait a minute, where am I exactly? And we were pulling out paper
Yeah.
maps because we didn't have cell service. So we went back to old school paper map.
Which
navigations.
also, there was a lot of talk about Starlink, being available,
Mhm.
which is fantastic if you had a Starlink.
Right.
So
And power.
98% of
power.
the people
Yeah.
had no Starlink and no power.
Yeah.
Our cell phones weren't working.
Right.
And so literally it was paper maps on the dashboard to navigate around to where we needed to go.
And to Matt's point too, I mean, that was the situation out of the gates. Nobody had cell phone signal. West North Carolina locals almost
Yeah. So
almost
from
everybody,
so from a local standpoint, what was it?
almost everybody has chainsaws.
Right.
So the immediate thing, I mean, everybody started getting out chainsawing their way out so they could
Yeah.
go start helping neighbors out.
Yeah.
And it was just organic. That's all you could do. Was
Yeah.
just contact your closest people, So, but it helped because
Yeah,
by the
it
time
did, yeah.
rescues showed up,
There was
a lot of them were cleared.
definitely a big sense of community, and everyone there helped each other. You could see it. People were on ATCs on the freeways and various, where the those 4-wheel drive little racing vehicles
Little
with
side-by-sides
water
and
side by side
Yeah.
and going from home to home. And neighborhoods had stations where they were having, food and extra supplies available for the community.
Yeah, that's
we
beautiful.
saw a lot of that actually where we were going.
Yeah, that was everywhere.
guys with side by sides and chainsaws are like, I was born for this.
Yeah.
Oh, they were
Absolutely.
on the freeway.
Exactly. Yeah.
Open
Well, we
slot.
kinda
Like,
felt
this
the
is
same
an enormous
a little bit,
silver
yeah.
lining for me.
So Charlie, you said that you had some adventures independent of these guys, right?
Mm-hmm.
So tell us a little bit about that.
Well, so I mean, there was no communication out of the gates, and we, where I live, I'm up on a ridge, so I didn't experience the flooding. So as soon as the sun came out after the flood, my family and I got in our Defender, and we went down the hill to the creek which is just a creek that runs at about a foot, and it was ripping at about 25 feet. And when we got to the bottom, the house that was there was completely gone.
Wow.
Zero evidence of there being a house there at all. So started to realize the scale of it, and we tried to go a lot of places and we couldn't go hardly anywhere. So that's when went back and just started, checking on neighbors and getting the chainsaws out and cutting our way out. So then the next day I got a little further out and checked on some more of my friends and chainsawed all day.
So how long did it take for the water level to diminish?
It spiked incredibly fast, incredibly fast. In fact, by 1 o'clock on Friday afternoon, about an hour after the rain, the Ivy Creek down by my house had dropped 6 feet already in an hour.
Wow.
And because of the mountains, I mean, that's part of what caused the disaster. It spikes high because there's nowhere for the water to go.
Right.
But we have elevation, so it also goes away quick. So the actual flooding went away fairly fast, except for the French Broad, because everything empties in the French Broad. So it ran really big for several days.
Well, and the velocity of the water too, because of the elevation changes.
So it pulled everything with it.
It's a lot faster than it is in the coastal areas as well.
Right.
So, and everything was sort of all, like Charlie was saying, each neighborhood, if you didn't get flooded, was like an island. So we had all these little islands, and you'd work your way out. I mean, I did the same thing. I get out, I'm like, okay, we'll grab a chainsaw. I mean, the neighbors, we started cutting. Got to get to the next road, get to the main road, cut that road out. All right. Okay. Well, that bridge is out. So let's go back the other way. That bridge is out. Okay. Let's go the other way. Oh, that's underwater. So we're stuck here.
These little islands had no water.
Right.
Some of them had no power.
Right.
And some of them had no support for almost a week and a half.
Wow.
Some of them, we were the first persons of some sort of a support that they were able to see or encounter.
Yeah.
What's the fuel situation like?
Very little. In fact,
fuel?
Yeah. What's the fuel situation like?
So because there's
you're going back and forth and, trying to get through and pretty nasty roads. Like what?
So there was no fuel.
No fuel.
In Asheville, the closest fuel was in Greenville, South Carolina, which means if you could get there, you could get some, but they even had power outages down there. So I somehow had the forethought to fill up a lot of jerry cans of fuel before this event. So I've lived through a few hurricanes and had enough to run a generator. And luckily, a lot of people have wells. So if you have a transfer switch that you can run your well pump off your generator, you're okay. The people in Asheville proper, we literally just last week got off the boil water advisory.
Wow.
Just got drinkable water about 4 days ago.
Wow.
100,000 people.
Yeah. So
suffering down.
That's wild.
Yeah. And for me with the fuel, I had access to the dealership. So on day 3, I showed up at the dealership.
There's a pump at the dealership?
What's that?
Was it a pump at the dealership?
No, but I have about 100 cars on the lot all full.
I
was excited. I just switching cars. I just kept getting another Defender. Another Defender and another Defender.
That's right. Yeah, another Defender. Yeah, that's right. Right. Very low mileage, these cars. Very low mileage. They're slightly used. All proven, though. They're they're all tested. They're all tested. Well, speaking of which, from a dealer standpoint, so how many of the local fire departments and rescue services now have come to buy Defenders after seeing all of these, all their F-350s break down? And
definitely a good sales pitch, right?
Yeah, right? I mean, you can't imagine a better, they have such a great history of being turned into fire trucks and things. You got to have, I can't wait for the new Defender Fire Tender Edition. I think that's, they got to do that, but, well, I think, absolutely everyone, I can't commend you all enough for, the bravery to go out there and do this and the willingness to go and help other people when, you certainly don't have to. Nobody's making you do this. Nobody's, in many cases, nobody's even asking you to do this. And you're out there doing this for other people. It's absolutely wonderful. It's, I think it shows the true spirit of this country and, when everybody comes together in one of these disasters. I think that's, that's what it's really all about. And thankfully, the Defender was there to help out as well as it's always been, as the Land Rover's always been there to help out in these sort of situations. So as it turns out, as we were talking a little before, everybody has a little bit of a Defender or a Land Rover history, Marcus. I don't know. Have you owned a Land Rover before ever? You've never owned one?
No, I have not.
Up until this weekend,
Family members
when you're gonna get one, you're gonna take one home with you.
My wife is telling me, make sure you bring one home, Mark.
You got to bring one home. We're gonna take you shopping out front here, but we'll get you something.
We do ship from Asheville.
Oh shit, we're gonna set you up.
Anywhere.
But Mike, you've had a couple of interesting.
Oh yeah, I'm a big fan.
Yep.
I had a 1987 Range Rover, the boxy white one.
Fantastic.
Loved it.
White that's the best color for that.
And then had a 1996 Disco that was one of 30 for the Eco Challenge.
Yeah.
So my wife is very fearful right now that I'm out here.
Yeah, absolutely. Oh yeah, well, we can show you some very well. And speaking of the Eco Challenge, what a perfect segue into the trek, which has obviously didn't happen in the Carolinas because of the disaster, but in true Land Rover fashion, a scramble happened, and because it's really important, I think, to the spirit of Defender to continue these competitions. There's been a week of competition happening out here, which like literally today, like it's still happening out here today. So tell us a little bit about that. How's that been going on out here? Both of you guys. How's that been going out here?
Yeah, so they did pivot, and the finals were supposed to be here in Carmel, the driving experience here. The qualifiers were supposed to be at Biltmore with Matt, and so when it obviously wasn't going to happen in Asheville, they pulled it off and were able to do the qualifiers out here. So everybody still made it. We as a team in Asheville, we didn't sign up for the redo until the very last day because we were all, I mean, most of us still didn't have power and none of us had drinking water. It was still pretty tough at home. But we decided, let's show up, let's represent.
I hear you guys did pretty good too.
We did pretty well in the qualifiers. We're going to find out tonight how we did in the finals.
I have one. I think you did pretty good. Yeah. I think you did pretty good. I have. I don't know. You didn't do too bad. I didn't do too bad. So I'm not giving anything away, but I have some money on it, and I think I'm doing okay. So, but yeah. I mean, and again, so just to explain for those people, I'm sure everybody here knows a little bit about Trek, but maybe talk a little bit about what Trek is.
I mean, it was my first time doing it. I could speak to my personal experience, but I mean,
sure.
Really, you've been doing these for a while, so
sure. So Trek started as an offshoot of the Camel Trophy events, when Camel Trophy was an international expedition and competition. So there were special tasks in Camel Trophy that the first Trek iteration, which was on ESPN2, if I'm not mistaken. You can still watch it on YouTube if you're interested. It was extreme. It was cool. It's back in the extreme sports days.
I remember those Discovery ones.
Yes, yeah. So we took the special tasks from Camel and then put them in one location. So we removed the expedition aspect to it, and then had, instead of international teams, we had the retailers across the nation compete against each other. So that's really the concept for it. And it ran for several years, and we've had several iterations, but this particular iteration started in 2019. We had qualifiers at Biltmore, and then the finals here in California right before 4x4. And we've run it pretty much ever since, with a little bit of a hiccup with COVID, of course.
Yeah.
But Trek's awesome. It's the idea behind it was to get the retailers excited about the brand, get excited about off-roading, so then they take that back and that becomes contagious with the other employees of the retailers and the customers, is really the idea. So
absolutely. No, it's really cool. And there's some Trek cars here, right, for people to take a look at.
I think they just arrived.
They're cleaning them off.
We drove here.
They're hosing them down, and there's we have a Camel Trophy truck here as well. So I don't know where you guys parked it, but it's here somewhere.
It's over in the camping area.
It's over in the camping area. That's it's parked over in the camping area. So we'll have to. Maybe we'll bring it over.
Yeah,
put it
check
next
it
to one
out.
of the Trek
Super
cars.
cool.
But
Is there a for sale sign on it?
Yeah, we can, you take it for a spin, Mike, if you want. Take Camel Trophy truck out.
I'll sell it to you right now.
That's a good. Yeah, that's right. Yeah, for sure. We'll make you a great deal on it. But well, thank you all for sitting down with us this afternoon. Thank you for everything that you do for the community, for the Land Rover community,
for the community at large, especially for us here in Los Angeles County. We truly appreciate it. Thank you for your service. And yeah.
Before we wrap up, do you guys have anybody you want to thank or say hi to?
I would like to say one thing. If anyone here is interested in helping the people in Asheville, we still need a lot of help. Samaritan's Purse, which is an organization run by Franklin Graham, the son of Billy Graham.
He's a customer of mine and a Land Rover owner.
He is a Land Rover owner. Has some very nice Land Rover, a couple of them actually.
Series trucks, yeah.
Yes. So if you're interested in donating, they were on the ground from the get-go, and they're still out helping people. So please, if you can, donate to them because they are still helping folks out there. There's still people living in tents waiting for the RVs and other stuff from the government to arrive. So if you could do that, that would be awesome.
Right on. Anybody else?
I'd like to thank my wife for not having my stuff out.
Otherwise, I'll get in trouble.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
For not having my stuff out on the sidewalk after I come back from these things. But I'd also like to thank our sheriff's department because when they heard that we had this trip all planned, ready to go, they actually made it an official mission of the LA County Sheriff's Department, which they didn't have to do. So they supported us big time. And it was very helpful walking into the command post, having LA County Sheriff patches and uniforms on. And Matt, I really like your hat, especially that rescue patch you have there.
It's pretty cool.
There you go.
Thanks for the patch,
pretty cool.
guys.
All right. So I want to thank my Trek team that's here that we've been having a good time with for a couple weeks.
Yeah, let's give those guys a hand.
So Daniel Woolley.
I can tell you that Trek is not easy. It is not. I mean, when you say dealer training, it's not like Toyota dealer training.
It's a little different.
It's a little different. It is. It is difficult stuff. And they don't go easy. They do not go easy on you. The Trek is very, very difficult. It's not like the Defender Trophy where Ike and I just got lost in the woods for an entire day. It is the real deal. So
Texas is a beautiful country.
It really is. We walked around the entire outside of Texas. Yeah, just walked around the entire outside. Never actually found our Defender, but it was great.
But I also want to thank my dealership because we ended up staging a support station at the dealership because we actually got power and water there before a lot of other places, and then we had some corporate folks from our dealer crew bringing loads of supplies, and we were able to stage, supplies and support from the actual store. Mm-hmm. And again, anybody that showed up on staff, I'd send them out with a Defender full of fuel to go deliver food to friends and family. So
that's awesome.
That's awesome.
Thank you guys for coming and telling your story, and thank you all for listening.
And there's some great stuff coming up tomorrow. Tomorrow morning, there is a panel from our esteemed colleagues and spouses all about the Rebel Rally, Land Rovers Rebel Rally teams, 2 teams this year that competed in the longest off-road navigation rally in the United States. Those 2 Land Rover rally cars parked out front. You can hear all about that adventure and see the premiere of the documentary film made about that. So make sure that you stick around for that and all the fantastic festivities going on throughout the day tomorrow, pizza making and all that stuff. Unfortunately, no slacklining. Ike and I had it banned from the event by accident last year.
I brought my slacklining shoes too.
Yeah, exactly. After last year, they said never again. So that's it. But yeah, thanks all for coming and enjoy the rest of your Destination Defender.
The Underpowered Hour is produced by Liza Beres, Ike Goss, and me, Steve Beres. Pavel Svardov composed and performed our theme music. Consider supporting the show on Patreon, and if you already do, thank you. Your support makes the show possible. For even more, check out our Instagram or Facebook.